Hi, and welcome to Q's workshop. Today I'm going to be making a tap follower that I saw on a fellow YouTuber's channel called JM Workshop. I'll drop a pin in the corner to his channel and to the actual tap follower. So he makes the drawings available of the tap follower and a couple of his other projects, and I reached out and asked, is it alright if I actually try it out on my channel, and he's happy with it. So I'm going to give it a go. It's going to be a little bit different to his, so if you do see the drawings in his channel, it's going to be a little bit different, and that's mainly because the spring I'm going to be using in the tap follower is smaller. I don't have the size of spring that he's got, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. The travel of my spring is going to be a bit less. So I've only got two small springs, so I'm just going to back-to-back these. But ultimately, the travel, because they're smaller, the travel is going to be less on these. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to accompany it with a plug on the back that's going to have some length to it that fits in the back. That when I do get a longer spring, what I can do is I can just take that plug, the whole plug out, shorten it, and then I can actually have more travel within the pin that sticks out in front. So let me get, so this is just some metal out of my scrap bin. I'm just going to get it cleaned up a bit. I'm probably only going to use these two. I might use a piece of this for the pin, for the piece that goes in the inside, so basically the back cap. I'll probably use this piece for the back cap, use this for the pin, this piece for the main body. Yeah, so let me get those cleaned up in the lathe, and then we can kind of discuss a bit on how it's all going to fit together. Okay, 10.5. I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I need to flip it over, clean up the other side, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill it and get everything done from this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill the smaller hole on this side where the actual pin comes through, get that drilled in at least to a certain depth, and then I can flip it over, clean up the other side to the same diameter, and then start with the actual wider diameter hole on the other side where the spring and everything fits into. So let me just get that, get the chuck back in here with the drill. Okay. Can't even feel the difference there. Right, next up is to drill the hole now from the other side, but I'm not going to go all the way through. It's going to, I would probably say, between 5 and 10 millimeters from the end. I will stop. Alright, so the tube itself is 80 millimeters. I want a section in the front that's only got the small 5 millimeter hole through, so that's going to be 5 mils wide over there. Therefore, I can only go in 75 millimeters with the drill. So I've marked off 75. I'm also just going to keep an eye on the gauge on the tailstock to make sure that I stop drilling before I get there. Okay, that's cut. Geez, you can see how hot it got there. Even discolored. It slipped a bit in the chuck while drilling it. I think I was just a little bit too eager. So let me get that one out and we can take a look at what it looks like. Alright, so this piece is done now. I just cleaned it up with some emery paper just to see what the end result is. It did mar it up a little bit. It slipped in the jaws when I was drilling. So I just wanted to clean it up a bit and see how bad that is, but I'm not going to worry about that little mark on it. So ultimately what we've got is a 7mm hole on this side, 5mm hole on that side. It's got a shoulder of about 5mm here on the front end. So next steps is to take this piece of scrap and turn it down to a pin that will come through this 5mm hole. So it will fit in from this side. It will have a 7mm back end on it, which will then push up in the inside against the shoulder so that the pin doesn't fall out the hole. Then what will happen is the springs come up against the back of it. So when you're following up against the tap, when you push it down, the pin pushes inside and compresses the springs inside. So let me get this piece in the lathe, and then we can turn down a pin with a piece on the back. Just going to cut off this front piece because this front piece is not going to really work. It's off center, so I'm just going to cut it off here and then clean up the rest. Okay, let's just see what we got here. Okay, we're looking for 7. Okay, we've got, what's this, 8. Just less than 8. So that would be 8. So we've got just less than 8. So we're almost on 7. If I take the, needs to fit in there. So I'm going to work it down to almost 7, and then I'll probably sand it and file it in the lathe to get it to fit perfectly in there, because I don't want it to be a very loose fit to start off with, because I don't want it to bind up in the inside because it's too tight, but I also don't want it to be too loose that it tilts, because as soon as it tilts inside there it might jam as well, even though I'll round the corners a little bit on it. Alright, just give another pass on that. Okay, that's pretty good. So it's not loose, it's got a little bit of play to it, which is nice. Alright, so now it's so I now know what I want the back to be, so probably going to have it about 5 millimeters as well, and then I'll start cleaning up between 5 millimeters. I might make it a centimeter and then start cleaning up the front end. Sorry, it's raining here now pretty hard. Alright, so I've just turned it around in the chuck and measured out where I want the pin to end, which is there by I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I made a mark where it needs to end, but because it's getting a bit thin, I'm going to put the live center on it. So I've just got it held there now that I can drill with a center drill just a little divot on this side that I can get the live center on it, but then I'll pull it out a bit further, then I can work down the full length of the pin. The only piece that will then be in the chuck is the little back end that rides in the inside of the cylinder, so the 7 millimeter side of it. Okay, let me get that drilled, then I'll get the live center on it, and then take it from there. So that's 495, 494, which I think is pretty good, because obviously I've drilled 5 millimeters, so it has to be a bit under 5. So now I've got to put a point on this. Now what I want to try and do is put the point on while I'm parting it off. And the reason I want to do that is because it's going to be difficult to actually put a point on this thin piece without having the live center in, unless I do it completely with files and move it further back in the chuck and those kind of things. So I'm going to see how far I can get it trimmed down here with the tool, and then take it from there. Okay, it's going to get pretty close to the chuck here, so I'm just going to take it slow, just to get a bit of a point on it, just to make it easier when I'm trying to do it with the file. That's all.
So yeah, let's see how this goes. Hopefully it doesn't chew it up. Didn't exactly put the angle on it that I wanted. Get that away. This will break off. I think I'll just take a file now and put a sharper point on that. Got to sand it down a bit more. It's starting to push through the hole, but it's just a little bit tight. Just take a little bit more off here. Okay, let's get this out. So I've left this thing pretty long. Again, that's part of the idea with the small springs that I have that's going to sit in the inside is when I do get larger springs, I can always just clean this piece up a bit if I need more space. The plug that I'm going to put in the back, I'm also going to make pretty big, and then I can clean that up as and when I get the other springs. But ultimately, this is supposed to fit in the back here, and it's supposed to go all the way through like that, and then this will move back and forth as the spring collapses in the inside. Right. So next up is the back end. So it's just going to be a little piece that sticks up. It's going to be the same width as the rest of this tubing, because this obviously has to get put into a collet or in the chuck. So the back end is going to be the same width, and then it's just going to have a piece that fits inside the tube that fits down, and I'm going to drill through that tube to put a to put a pin through. I am thinking still about potentially putting a thread on here, and then I can just screw it on as well. But I'm still thinking about how that's going to, either a pin or the thread. But as I start working down on the other piece, I'll contemplate the options. Alright, so now we've got the main body, the pin completed, what I need to determine is how deep I need to go into the cylinder to hold the springs in place. If we just pop the pin in there, drop the springs, put that in there. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put some layout fluid on the 7mm drill that I used. The reason I'm using something like this is because this is flat and thick, where the back end of my caliper has got a thin little point here, which is just going to go into the inside of the spring, so it's not really going to help. I'm just going to drop that in there and then just twist it a little bit. There we go, so it's actually marked up there. So just measure to the furthest point of that mark, and we got 36.7. Right, so I need a section that goes in here, 36.7, and then I'm going to put a 10mm cap on the back of it. So we'll measure out 47 on a piece of material that I'm going to work on. I've also decided to thread this, so I'm going to thread this with 8mm, then another piece of scrap that's actually going to be the cap. I'll take this down to the outer diameter of this, which is, I think it was 10.5. I'll measure it as I'm cutting down on this stock. Take this down to about 10.5. Then the very next section would be probably about 9mm, which is going to be the thread piece that has to thread in there, and then it's just going to be the pin that fits in and holds the springs. Right, so let me get this up into the lathe and we just start cleaning it up. Okay, so this is now 10.6. I was hoping that I could get under the threads here from the side that I'm working at the moment, but it doesn't look like I'm going to, so I'm going to have to turn it around and keep this section here because otherwise this part is going to become too thin to actually be the back cap. So I'm going to keep this section in the chuck, and then I can clean this up further down for the new threads that I'm going to add on. But let me just get this piece here cleaned up a little bit. Alright, so what I've got now is I've taken it down. The whole piece is now down to 10.6 millimeters. The actual tap, this body is 10.5, so this is 10.6 at the moment. Because what I want to do is I want to get it cut up and threaded in, and then I'll do a pass over the whole piece together to get it smoothed out and fit together properly. Because I also want to clean up the edge here and put like a little bit of a taper on the front. But okay, so I've got this correct now, at least the outer diameter. So the next step is to mark off where I want it to end. So let's say over there. So what I'll do now is the next section I'm going to take down to 9 millimeters, because that's the piece that's going to be threaded or tapped here at the end to fit into the thread that I'm going to put in the inside, and then the rest of it is just going to be 7 millimeters or just under 7 millimeters to actually fit into there. All right, so that's all the next steps. Get this back in, and then we can get working on it. I'm taking it very slow because I'm not putting a tail. I'm not bringing the tailstock in with the live center, which I'm actually thinking I'm dependent on how far out I'm going to have this hang. I might have to do that. So yeah, I'm going to get the live center on it, because I want to pull this out as far as I can out of the chuck, so that I can work as close to in here as possible. Okay, so we've got it on 8.7. I think that's good enough. So I need it to be just under 9 for threading this piece over here, right against the edge. So now we clean up the rest of it. I'm only going to leave about 7 millimeters, maybe 8 millimeters on the end here, and the rest gets cleaned up. Because I don't want a lot of thread on here. It's literally just to keep the cap on. So let me clean up this end section, and then we take it from there. So if I take this, probably there is a line here on this, so I'm probably just going to clean it up to this line and bring this down to 7 millimeters. Right, we got 7.5 on the dot. Oh, sorry, 6.5 on the dot. I think that's perfect. I didn't think I was going to be able to hit that with the gauge that's on. There we go. Oh, that'll fit perfect. I mean, literally, it's just got to be able to pass the threads and be able to push the springs in the inside. It could probably have been a little bit bigger, but I think that'll work perfect. Okay, so now from the shoulder over there to the end has to be 37 is what we originally measured, because that's the section that I need in the tube to be able to push against the springs. So we only need 37. So I'm just going to mark this out, and then we'll clean up this whole back section up to 37. always use the parting tool for that, but I don't want to bother getting it out now. Okay. Now we just clean up that little end. That's it. So it's ready now for the thread. I put a little reset at the back here, obviously because the threads can't go all the way to the edge, and the tool always puts a round piece against the edge there, so you have to add some clearance lower than the surface. So I've cut in there a bit. Let's get the threads tapped here and on the other section, and we can put them together. Something pliers. There we go. So now this can get cleaned up all together as one piece. Perfect. What I also think I must do is I must actually assemble it before I clean it up, because I'm scared I'm not going to be able to get the cap back without using this cap off again without using a pliers or something. So I think I'm going to have to clean this up nicely before I do that. So I'll clean this all up, put some oil on it, then put it in, and then I'll clean up the outside. Because obviously I don't want to hurt this again later on when I take it off with the pliers. Right, so I've put it together. All that it is, I just put a little bit of oil in the inside just to stop it from rusting. Then put the back on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fasten it up in here. I was using tin because I didn't want to hurt this. The finish that I've already got on it, but the problem is it keeps on slipping. So I'm just gonna fasten it in like that, and then we clean up this back end lightly. I need to get this turned on properly. There we go. Okay, so now we just clean this up, take it down slightly just for it to become flush over the joint here, and then we clean it up with some emery paper. Let me just move it in a bit. done. So I'm just going to do this front section because I want to actually clean up. I want to put a little bit of a taper here on the end and hopefully get rid of that marring that happened originally when I was drilling. Perfect. So now it's just the taper on the front here, and then I'll sand it down a little bit. Okay. Let me just get it wiped up and then we can take a look at it. Well, that's holding it nice and centered. It's keeping it where I need it. And it's cutting a lot easier than trying to, if this was not here, trying to keep this centered to get those first threads cut. So that's working a lot better. Well, there it is. Surface finish here at the back could have been a little bit better, but overall it looks good. It's got some nice hard spring to it. That's it. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.